Hello, everyone. So we are back again. This,
Hello.
this is the second show.
Yep.
And for if today is your first time watching us, SECAN stands for Standing Together Against Child Abuse and Neglect.
Yeah.
For this evening's topic, if this evening's discussion, we're going to look at promoting the well-being of children. What is physical abuse? So our concentration for this evening will be physical abuse. So we're going to look at what we mean by physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
Last time we met, which was a couple of weeks ago, we talked about abuse. So we talked about we briefly mentioned or talked about the various categories of abuse. We talked about physical abuse. We talked about emotional abuse. We talked about sexual abuse. We
Mm-hmm.
talked about neglect. So for this evening, and depending on which country you are, in the UK here, it's in the evening. We are going to look at physical abuse, and as we usually do, we would have an introduction before we go right into the discussion. So we would have our panel members. Our panel member.
Right.
If you could introduce yourself, please, Ejiro. If you could introduce yourself, thank you.
So my name is Jairo Akinrele, the surname, and I'm a qualified social worker, and I've been a social worker with children and families for 15 and a half years. So I do come across a lot of, physical abuse and all sorts of different kinds of abuse. So that's me.
Wow, thank you. So, for those who do not know me, my name is Elsie Owusukumi, and I'm running the show with my colleagues here. So, my colleague this time, and I am also a qualified social worker, and currently I'm a child protection social worker. So we would go straight in to look at what we mean by physical abuse. So Ejiro, is it okay to start us off with
Yeah.
what we mean by physical abuse? So what do we mean by physical abuse?
So basically, in a layman's point of view, a physical abuse is deliberately hurting a child or a young person. That's classified. So you have different kind of, physical abuse. So hitting a child, causing bruises to the child, suffocating the child. There's in Africa, some part of Africa, there's some places says ironing a child's breast, a teenager's breast, to stop them from growing, or even cutting, a child's vagina so that, and also burns, scalds, bites, marks. So all this kind of, things are classified as physical abuse, basically.
Wow.
And also, in some cases, if a child is being given medication that, necessary medication that the mother or the fathers, keep saying this child is ill all the time, it's also seen as a physical abuse, also, classifies, mutualism by proxy. It's a child unnecessarily going to the hospital with no apparent reason, also can be seen as physical abuse as well.
Wow. Yes, of course. Yeah, physical abuse. Yeah, and sometimes parents would be wondering, would be just be saying that, yeah, but then what is the big deal if, I hit my child? What is the big deal if my child is naughty and, I
Uh-huh.
hit my child? But then like Ejiro has stated from our line of work, we do not promote, hitting a child with an object or even your hands, slapping your child, punching your child, kicking your child, slapping your child, bending your child, doing all these things, because sometimes parents or carers, do these things, particularly when it comes to hitting the child to, discipline the child. But then we are looking at safer strategies, safer ways in
Of
which the child can be disciplined, isn't it, Ejiro?
Absolutely, absolutely. Different
Yeah.
ways, disciplining a child, which today, in today's world, is probably more effective than physically chastising or physically hitting a child. And in case of abuse, even for example, if you, I mean, it's not really illegal to discipline a child by smacking by the hand, or just a small tap, with your simple hand. That's not physical. So we have to put this in a perspective as well. But if you deliberately hit a child and you injure that child sustain or different any injury at all, and is consistent, that is classified as abuse. But if, for example, if by accident, if you say you slap a child and there was a one-off incident, that will not be seen really as an abuse. But if it's consistent and that physical action has a side effect on that child, that is now classified as an abuse.
Yes, of course. So I mean, yes, so intentionally causing harm to the child.
Yeah, yeah,
So this is not accidental.
yeah,
Yeah. So I
absolutely.
mean, somebody would ask that, as a social worker,
Yeah,
if I cane my child in the UK,
yeah.
and the child goes to school to tell the teacher that I have caned him or her, would that have any implication?
From experience, being from 50 years of experience, in most cases, where parents who actually use physical, like cane, any object to discipline a child, is never a one-off. It's always something that is regular, because this is what they know how to do in terms of disciplining the child. So really, if you consistently use an object to discipline and chastise your child, that will be classified as an abuse, really. As and because in the UK, we said we must not use an object. Just like you as an adult, would you allow someone to use a cane or a rule or something, or a wooden spoon to keep hitting you when you've done something wrong, when you're not quite sure? So you just put yourself in a child's perspective, and that becomes an abuse, basically. And it's
Yeah.
illegal for that to happen. And if you consistently use an object to chastise your child and that child sustain an injury, in this country, in any developed world, really, is classified as a physical abuse, and you can't be prosecuted for that.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, I have come across situations whereby parents would say that, or parents and carers would say that,
Yeah,
you are spoiling the child. You are spoiling the child,
uh,
and that the Bible is even saying, spare the child, spare the rod, and spoil the child, And
yeah.
so, but then, we are promoting safer, safer ways, isn't it?
Every
Safer
parent.
strategies,
Uh,
safer parenting. And
mhm,
this and being aggressive. I mean, research is saying that being aggressive, in our parenting in terms of discipline our children leads
mhm.
to nothing. Instead, it promotes aggression in children.
Absolutely,
You know,
absolutely.
yeah.
If I must say, in terms of in relations to um, the signs or the symptom of physical abuse on children, or especially on babies.
Mm,
So we have, like, shaky baby syndrome. So in most African countries, when you have a baby, they tend to turn that baby upside down. I say you're aware of, when the baby is just born, you have your grandmother or mother coming in and say, look, we have to stretch their hands with the baby. So what if the baby's hands dislocate, and it's consistent? That is actually classified as physical abuse, because that can lead to unconsciousness. It can lead to suffocation. So babies are more vulnerable when it relations to physical, people who are children who are actually disabled, who cannot speak for themselves. Especially babies. If you shake a baby consistently, it can lead to something. It can lead to brain damage, learning difficulties, can actually eventually lead to death. So baby are more vulnerable when in relations to physical abuse. Um, and also, obviously, children who are disabled.
and obviously, somebody will be asking that, but then
Yeah,
why will a person beat a baby? We're talking
right.
about not just that, but then sometimes a parent would be angry because the
Mhm.
baby is crying, and then the
Yeah,
parent will be shaking the baby like that
absolutely.
because you are so angry and you want
Mhm.
the baby to stop crying.
Yeah,
Instead of looking to understand why the baby is crying, maybe the baby is crying because the baby is hungry. Maybe the
absolutely.
baby, has got a wet nappy,
Mhm.
or the baby is tired, or other other reasons. I mean, the baby wouldn't cry for no reason. So
Absolutely.
we need to get to the bottom of that. But then shaking the baby, you
Mhm.
are causing more harm to the baby,
Mhm.
you know.
Absolutely.
And
Uh,
so we need to, and then again, biting. They have situations whereby, people have, kids have
yeah.
been bitten,
Yeah.
biting the arm or the back, or and then again, I have, we've come across situations whereby um the child was, the
Yeah. Ironing of
iron,
the breast. Yeah. Or ironing. Yeah.
yeah,
Iron the child's whichever part of the body.
yeah. One time, somebody actually used the iron on the child's body
Yeah.
because the child had stolen some meat from the soup or something,
Uh-huh.
So the person was saying that I'm doing this so that when he sees the mark on his body, he will know that he shouldn't steal meat again.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that is really sad.
Exactly. Physical abuse in relations to the African community, which we're focusing these topics on, really is saying that, okay, even as we're talking about babies, if you force feed a baby,
Mm,
there are the cases where people were prosecuted because a child died as a result of someone force feeding that child. So that is classified as physical abuse because this is really something that's prevalent within the African community. You have a child who is finding it difficult to eat, a baby who is finding it difficult to feed themselves or to be fed, or they're refusing to be fed. Most African grandmothers will say, okay, we have to force feed, hold the child's nose like this and force feed the child. And that child can choke. And once that child chokes, what happens? You are likely to be prosecuted, and and classified as as physical abuse itself. Um, so I was just making research about some part of African countries where they iron the breast of a teenager to stop them from growing. I think it's something that is new in the UK, but I know most Africa is something that's quite prevalent now. And also female genital mutilations, to prevent there's a myth that that girls needs their clitoris needs to be cut so that they're not promiscuous. So when you are in the Western world and you continue to promote that, that's actually classified also as physical abuse, you know
yes. Yes. Okay, so we will be going on to look at the signs of physical abuse. So somebody will be asking that, what are the signs of physical abuse? How do I know? Or like, I mean, I'm a teacher, I'm a professional.
yeah,
How do I
yeah,
know that this child has been physically abused? Or I am a neighbor and I think this child is physically abused or has
mhm,
been physically abused, but I'm not entirely sure. What are some of the signs people need to be looking out for in terms of to know whether a child has been physically abused? Yeah.
So sometimes you see the bruises on the child. Most cases, if it's physical abuse, that someone has used an object, you're likely to see a bruise. Even if they've used your hands or whatever they've used, you're likely to see a bruise on the child. It could be on the back. It could be hidden. Sometimes not hidden. It's very obvious. It could be head injury if it's baby, fracture. Broken limbs on babies, bite marks on children. It could be, as we said before, scarring, or ironing. So it could be all sorts of, like for example, this baby that's being physically abused. Sometimes they are vomiting, or they are irritable, or they are floppy. We carry the baby is just floppy. There's no muscles on it, and those are the things we look out for. Or the baby is drowsy or sleeping all the time. And I know over the years, we have Victoria Climate, then we have other babies who have been, social workers had gone into the house, they realized that this baby was being physically abused. And I know I'm talking more about baby. I don't know why, this child was being hit and thrown like a, football, from one end to the other. That child became floppy. So you always make sure, look out for floppiness, drowsing, and vomiting sometimes, But if it's a young child who is mobile, are there bruises on them, Are they active? If they're walking, why are they not walking? If they're 2 years or 3, 4 years old, why are they sitting down all the time? So those are the things you will look out for. If they are not specific bruises, if it's a child who is, old enough in terms of their development, but they are not fulfilling that well, why are they not active? So, those are the things we look out for in terms of physical abuse. Sometimes the bruises are obvious, but some other times they're not, but if you want to look at the physical, evidence, especially in babies, as I said, sometimes they become unconscious. Baby can be crying consistently, or baby is drowsing, or they are broken fractures, or head injuries, or burns or scars on the skin. So all sorts could be happening as well. Or parents keep giving different kind of medication to the child, and the child is presenting to different hospitals or GP and say, my child is ill all the time. So all that we need to look at as a sign, of a child who is being. If when you see that, be suspicious, be curious about what's going on in that child's life.
Yeah, and talking about curiosity,
Mm,
safeguarding is everybody's business. So
yes,
safeguarding should not be left to just professionals. Everybody,
absolutely,
so we,
absolutely.
we, we, we each have a duty to make sure that children and young people are safe.
Yeah,
So then,
absolutely.
if you are concerned about a child, you need to raise the alarm bells. You need to
Mhm.
inform professionals. You need to inform the right agencies
Yeah.
so that the child is safeguarded.
Mhm.
I mean, in terms of marks, on a child's body. Sometimes a child has gone to school, and there will be marks. Sometimes slap. That
Mhm.
there are times that children will go to school, and then you can see the mark of somebody's hand. The child has been
Yes. Yes.
slapped by a parent.
Mhm.
And then a teacher would ask the child what actually happened, and the child would say that, okay, my mom slapped me because I was getting late for school, or my dad slapped me because I wasn't, doing A, B, and C. And again, there have been situations whereby you'd actually find marks, like belt marks on the child.
Mhm.
And, and I mean, as a social worker, if a professional, like a teacher,
Mhm.
is in school and the teacher finds that there's a belt mark on the child, what steps do you think, would you advise the teacher or the person to take?
Well, it depends. So, obviously, if it's a professional, there are protocols they have to follow. If you're a professional and you suspect that a child is being, or you suspect there's a mark and the child is being physically abused, there are safeguarding protocols that are every school, every community provision, like football ground, even church community. You have supposed to have a safeguarding protocol, which you must refer to according to the government guidelines in relation to to sending a referral to children's services, and making a referral in relation to children's services, or even calling, and asking for guidance and how you're supposed to send the referral to them, and raising that concern as to why, about what you have seen and what you have observed. So there are protocols that we as professionals have to follow, especially if it's school, or it doesn't matter the kind of school, if it's a church provision, if it's a community provision, if it's whatever it is, organization that you work in, and you observe a child coming to you, or you've seen that's showing a sign of being physically abused, there are safeguarding protocol which you need to follow, according to, in line with the Children's Act 2000 in 1989, under Section 47, that every child, every local authority, every community have a duty to safeguard and ensure that every child that they look after or look out for is safe within their own setting. So it's important that when you see or suspect that a child is being physically abused, the protocol is that you make a referral to the local safeguarding, or ask for advice within your local safeguarding board, really, if you're in the UK. But if you're not, you can always call, NSPCC. They will give you the advice as to what else to do if you're within the UK. But if you're all over the world, different countries have a different protocol, but as far as I know, within Europe and within United States and any developed country, we have those safeguarding protocol, and we have laws and policies that we have to follow to ensure that every child, that we all have a duty as adults to protect and ensure that every child is safe, basically, and protected within their setting and within their community.
Yeah. So we each have a duty to,
Yeah,
we shouldn't leave this to just professionals or social workers or some other
absolutely.
person. We each have a duty to safeguard the child. And like Ejiro said, whichever country you find yourself, please inform the authorities. It could be the police, it could be, children's services, social care, in that particular country. In the UK, you can inform your local authority, and then you can also inform the NSPCC, agencies like the NSPCC. They are all there to, to help out. You may never know that particular phone call or that one phone call or that one,
Mhm.
reach out support, agency you phone to reach out for the child. That may be saving the child from further abuse, being
Absolutely.
abused, you know, um, experiencing more, abuse. Okay, so we'll be looking at effects of physical abuse. But then before we do that, I have come across situations whereby parents would say that, okay, so you are telling me not to hit my child and not to do
Mhm.
this and not to do this. Um, but then, so if my child is naughty, are you just telling me to leave the child and, for the child to continue being naughty? What else can I do if I can't hit my child? If I can't beat my child, what else can I do? Jiro, as
So,
a social worker, what would your advice be?
so usually, it depends on the age of that child, and it depends on at what level. So it's always good to start from when the child is very, very young, because we believe that as soon as you start putting the routine and boundaries from the very beginning, when the child starts to learn the skill of life, because children have to take risk. That's the way they learn. So they will say, for example, don't touch that table, don't touch that book there. That's what, because they're inquisitive, so they will do that. So it's up to us to say, okay, why, asking yourself as a parent or as a caregiver, why does that child wants to touch what I said he shouldn't touch? Instead of you just say, oh, smack, don't touch. Say, you know what, okay, take your step back. Why? I've said don't touch. What is the reason? Why would that child be going to touch whatever I said to them? So it's something, it's a repetition. Children are supposed to make, just like adults, they're supposed to make more mistakes, because that's the way they learn. So for example, you ask your child, come back from school, I will pick you up at a certain place in school playground at 3 o'clock, 3:15, and the child wasn't there. Why? Trying to establish why that child wasn't at where you asked them to stay before you react and smack, because the smacking, it doesn't actually correct the mistake that child actually is experiencing, because children make mistakes so that they can learn. You see, there's a reason why children are naughty. No, I won't say naughty really. I say it's that they are adventurous, because if they don't know any difference. It's whatever when the Bible says, you bring up a child the way they should go, and when they grow they will not depart from it. Really, it's a practical thing. It's practical that, okay, you know what, this baby that I have is 1 year now, is beginning to walk, around the house. He's going to be pulling everything down because he's very excited. He's already walking, so it's up to you not to continue to supervise this child. No, don't touch that. This is, you are not allowed, and continue to monitor that child. You see, so using physical chastisement for a child doesn't actually correct the behavior. It actually say you're actually inflicting pain, because the child probably won't know why they behave that way or what you actually expect of them. So it's always best, okay, take your step back. Why is this child behaving this way? Sometimes it has to do with what's actually going on within the home environment. What's happening with mom and dad? Is mom, if you're a single parent, is mom stressed? Is mom or dad stressed all the time? Dad is working so hard, comes home late, angry all the time. There's always something there's a mitigating factor in the reason why a child actually misbehaves. So it depends on the circumstances. What is the position of that child in the family home? Is that a middle child? Is he a three children in the family? The middle child feels, I'm not wanted, so seeking attention. Sometimes they will seek it negatively, not positive, because every time they misbehave, they know that they will have adults. Are you many? You have many children? If you have many children, you spend quality time with them, so all sorts of reasons why children misbehave. So we as adults need to really think about our own personal life and be comfortable. So why are we stressed? Because a parenting really is a job. It's a psychological job. We have opportunities. So you know what? I really need to be emotionally stable. I really need to not to be stressed. This is it because it's a job itself. It's a professional job that we have to bring up the next generation. But if you keep beating and slapping, you're actually teaching them. That's how to parent a child, and that's how to manage a child. So when the Bible says, not spare the rod, it's not actually using the physical to not to spare. It says teach the child the way they should go. So if you teach a child when you're naughty, I'm going to use a stick and hit you. So what do you think is going to happen? When they get to school, if another child is naughty, they will get a stick and hit that child and they get into trouble. So the best way to do this is to say, take a step back. Why is this child behaving this way? What is it? It's looking at the whole picture of your child, your son or your daughter, and what stage and which they are. So sometimes we in our own community, we're not really educated in terms of child development. Okay, at this age of 1 year, what is this child supposed to be doing? At the age of 2 or 3, what are they supposed to be doing? As teenagers, what am I expected of them? What is the behavioral trait that I'm supposed to be looking out for? So we all have to learn that. I know it's not easy. It's never easy. It's a difficult task as a mother, as a father, as a parent, as a caregiver that we have to do. However, we've been given the task as a human being to be able to bring the next generation, to become superb and be able to be wonderful members of society. So we have obligation really to make sure that whatever we need to do to parent the child is not using physical to manage or change the behavior we expect of them to change.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Ejiro. Wow, that is really comprehensive. Yes. So certainly we are discouraging, you know, hitting and with canes and all that. And then as Ejiro said, such behaviors, research is also saying that such behaviors increases aggression in children. I mean, there have been situations whereby, instances whereby children have been in school and school would phone, like teacher would phone, well, parents.
Parent,
And
yeah.
or sometimes, if social care are involved, would say that I'm not quite sure about this child, but then this child comes to school and this child keeps hitting other children.
Children, yeah,
And I'm really
absolutely.
worried. And
Mm.
then you are wondering where the
That
child is
child is
learning that from.
Mhm.
Where is the child learning that behavior from? Why would the
Yeah,
child go to school and be hitting other children? I mean, why would a child go to school and if some child, maybe picks a pencil or his or her book or whatever, instead of saying that don't pick my book or I'm going to report to the teacher, the child will just hit this particular child, hit him or her at the back or anywhere. The
Mhm.
child is used to hitting people
Absolutely.
who wrong him or her. So such behaviors have been picked definitely for somewhere. The child has been made to understand that if you are not happy about something, if somebody makes you angry, if somebody does something which you are not happy about, you need to hit the person
Mm.
as a way of punishing the person. The child has not been taught to communicate that if you are not happy about something, you need to report. This is how things work. You need to report to the teacher who is the authority in the class,
Yeah,
and then the teacher will sort it out. The teacher is the best person to know how to manage that. You don't have to take things in
absolutely.
your own hands. But then the child does not know that because the child is only doing what he or she sees at home. And again,
Absolutely.
research is saying that children learn via observation. So they observe and then they act. So they
Absolutely.
observe what parents are doing at home, and then they would act out. They would, so if you should tell a child that, okay, hitting is not good, but then the child sees you hitting, the child is more likely to do what you do than what you say. And that is what research is saying. And that is why it's important that, our words match our actions.
Absolutely.
You can't just say a child that do A, B, and C, and then you are doing D, E, and F.
Mhm.
It
Mhm.
should match. And
Absolutely.
children are watching us. Yeah. So in terms of, again, in terms of, as Ejiro has explained, when we're looking at what are the safer ways, some of the safer ways, in discipline children. Yeah, we're talking about, um, you know, timeout and all that, rewards and, and again, for me, I keep saying to parents that, positive reinforcement,
Mhm.
positive reinforcement. Many a times when a child, comes back from school, for instance, yeah, I'm just giving an example, and the child has got 100% school attendance. How many parents would say, "Oh, well done, you are so good. I'm so proud of you." Sometimes when the child, brings the sheet of paper which says that 100% attendance, well done, the child will show the paper to the parent, and the
Mhm.
parent would say, "Okay, what is it?" Then, then the parent will just put it somewhere. The parent will not even acknowledge it because it's not important. But then
Mhm.
if the child had given something to the parent, and then that something was saying that your child has been really naughty in school and we need to speak to parents, then you will be on the child.
Mhm.
So why are we emphasizing? Why are we looking at the negatives and
Mhm.
reacting on the negatives, but then not
Mhm.
reacting on the positives?
Yeah.
You know,
So for me, really, it's just bringing up a child is an interesting task. For me, that's obviously God has given the human race. So I think I'm not sure. It depends on the circumstance which the child is born. Because if you take interest on children, when a child is achieves something, just like every human being, you say, "Well done." There's a kind of feeling, adrenaline that comes that enables you, urge you on to do better, isn't it?
yeah.
So that's the reason why we hopefully in our community we say, because obviously a lot of families not used to being acknowledged. A lot of black community, a lot of adults actually are really experiencing very low self-esteem. So if you don't have a good sense of self yourself, how can you give it out to your children? You
Mm,
see, if you've never been acknowledged as adults and you have to really fight your way through as adults, it's very, very difficult because you don't know. If you don't know, then you can't give. So if you know, if you can, but even if you didn't know, but you can still learn. You see, even though you didn't know, were not brought up to acknowledge, to really be a positive person, but you can still learn the skill. Once you've got your own children, you can still learn the skill. You know what? This child is really trying, whatever, even if he hasn't, even if he didn't do well, for example, like his schoolwork, it's okay, you didn't quite do well this time, but I think you will, it'll be all right because you can do better. But next time you do better because there's opportunity to do better, isn't it? So it's just, for me, the adults in the children or the caregiver, is us learning that skill to say, you know what, even if I didn't have this positive affirmation before as an adult, I don't want my children not to, so that my children can be different. Then, because as you give to your children positive affirmation, they can grow and grow taller emotionally. They will be able to give it to others, and they'll be able to give it to others. And as time goes on, you have generations of people who really have good sense of self, who can say, also bring up their own children and say, you know what, I don't, whether you know maths or English, I think you can play football. So just concentrate. You can do really well in that football. So whatever it is that your child is good at, let's promote that. Yes, maybe you're a perfectionist mother, or a father who is, who never see any good in anybody at all. But however, let's think in our head, if you don't see any good in anyone, what's the likelihood that your children are going to be seeing any good in somebody else? So we are perpetuating a generation either of failures or people who are going to make it in life. So whatever is where, so I always go back when the Bible says, bring up a child the way they should go. So whatever you put in, so It's now it's really, really important. If you're an adult, you feel you need help, and you're not quite this job of parenting, you're struggling with it, ask for help, ask for advice. Even if you can't get it within a community setting, there are resources out there in the world. Internet is open now, YouTube is open. How to bring up parenting in a safe environment without using physical chastisement to be able to correct their behaviors.
Yeah. So we can learn the fact that, the
Yeah.
fact that growing up, this is all you knew.
Mhm.
Because to be fair, a number of parents, and carers we do come across is,
Mhm.
some of their behaviors or actions, or in terms of their parenting strategies,
Mhm.
are, things they have picked up from when they
From
were young
generations.
themselves.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Mm.
And so it's been passed on, and it's been passed on, and it's been
Yeah.
passed. So sometimes, some people, in their head, they don't go out to intentionally hurt the child.
That's right.
They are doing what they feel is right, they think
Mhm.
is right, because that is all that they have seen or been
Mm.
exposed to, or that
Mhm.
is what, how they were trained when they were growing up.
Yeah,
Some
absolutely.
of them were beaten, some of them were beaten with cane, and all kinds of things. And when they were growing up, for as a way of, when they displayed negative behaviors. So
Mm.
these things were done to discipline them. So they
Mhm.
are saying that, okay, one woman actually told me that, yeah, Elsie, this, as when I was growing up, I was beaten a lot by my dad, and
Uh-huh.
I didn't die. It made me this strong, good woman, disciplined woman I am now.
Mhm.
So that is why I'm using the same strategy for my child.
Mhm.
And I was trying to explain to the mom that, there are better ways and there are safer ways to go about it,
Mm.
and
Absolutely.
to achieve better results.
Mm.
Yeah. So, we would be going on to look at the effects of physical abuse. What are some of the effects of physical abuse on children? Edu, are you able to start us
Yeah,
off?
that's not a problem at all. So one of the effects really is anxiety. I mean, if you watch, I don't know about, everyone. So anxiety, mental health disorders, eating disorders, issues at school, obesity, children who, as teenagers, involving in risky behaviors, running away from home. It could be, or it can come out, physical abuse can come out in different form in terms of in being involved in criminal activities, depression in teenagers and all children. So all or serious mental health difficulties. So it can come out in different form when it comes to physical abuse.
Yeah. And there have been times, talking about criminal activities, there have been
Mm.
times that young people, because sometimes parents do not see the correlation or the link between,
Yeah,
how the child has been raised in terms
yeah.
of the beatings, the shouting, the pulling of the hair, the
Hmm.
the kicking, pushing
Hmm.
the child, and how the child, is growing up to himself or herself
Hmm.
display aggressive behaviors, and is very violent, and the child
Yeah,
easily gets angry, and the child would easily hurt somebody,
yeah,
so this,
absolutely.
because the home environment is so chaotic.
Hmm.
Yeah, there is so much aggression at home, and
Hmm.
then this child has then learned these these negative behaviors,
Mm.
because, yeah, the child is being pushed, the child is being hit. So the child goes to school, or the child is, with his or her friends,
Hmm.
and the moment that, somebody, makes him or her like angry or upset, they will just push the person.
Hmm.
And when you continue doing that, when the child continues to hurt other people, obviously there will be repercussions. Sometimes,
Hmm.
depending on the nature of, the incident, the police will be called.
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
the person, or the young person, obviously a
Mm.
child will grow into a young person, isn't it? And the young
Absolutely,
person, a criminal history. You know,
absolutely.
these behaviors, can do have the tendency,
Yeah,
making people have anger issues.
absolutely, absolutely.
And it's all around aggression. That is why we always promote, we always advocate that we want the home environment to be peaceful.
It's
When there
peaceful,
is so much
absolutely.
chaos, when there's so much, and then do you also know that I mean, there are sometimes some cases.
Mhm,
I remember when I was in Ghana, there are some cases here when they are beaten by their parents with a cane
mhm, mm.
because they've gotten so used to this.
So, yeah,
It makes no difference to them now. They won't even cry.
absolutely, absolutely, absolutely,
They won't even cry. I mean, it
absolutely.
happens them more. I
Mhm.
mean, initially the child would cry, the child would be
Yeah,
upset and all, but then later on, when they get to their teenage years, they've
yeah,
gotten used to it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and the child can just be standing still. You would
yeah,
give the child about 10 lashes. The child will
yeah,
still be there.
yeah. Because the child has conditioned he or she has conditioned their minds to say, you know what, it's like self-harming, isn't it? When you
Mm, mm,
self-harm, it's inflicting physical pain on yourself. So can you imagine, so somebody else is actually harming that person, so not the teenagers harming themselves. So once you start and it continues and continue, what that child says, look, becomes immune to that pain. You see, that it becomes a mirror, and what's going to happen? That you've numbed that child a sense of emotions. They are unable to express emotions. You're actually bringing up a child who can actually harm somebody else without even taking account of empathizing. So they will lack the inability to empathize with others. You see, so that's why, for example, as you said, that's a child will go to school and harm or bully somebody else, and make inflict pain on somebody because that empathy is been taken away through the physical abuse, because it's been taken away from them. So for them, it's norm. And I've seen, even in our community, where children, as you said now, no longer being able to express no emotions, just stands there. There's no point.
mm,
Let me
mm,
just stand here.
mm.
Or oppositely, you see children who are very, very timid. you know they cannot look at people in the face. I know in Africa, where I come from, in Nigeria, when you look at someone in the eye, they say you're rude. But here in England, if you look down when your teacher is talking to you, that says you're rude. So you can imagine, if you're United Kingdom, you're bringing up your children in the United Kingdom or in the Western world, and you're physically actually harming your children, they become very timid. They're not able to speak for themselves. They're not able to stand up in class and be counted. So you can imagine the kind of human beings you're bringing up for your family, for the next generation. You see. So the effect of physical abuse, it's only a smack, all right, doesn't really harm. Okay, smack today, smack tomorrow, smack next tomorrow. Then it turns to something else. Or you put soap, because for the child's lie, you put soap, you say, use soap to wash your mouth, and that soap becomes poison. Okay, right. Nobody will see the soap, but something will happen. So all that. What do you think when the child grows up? He's learned that when someone lies, when they say, "Oh, I don't catch you lying," or like stealing, meat from a pot, we put soap in your mouth. Huh? As an adult, will you allow soap in your mouth? That's poison. So those are the things, and some of them would talk to drugs and alcohol, cannabis. The most teenagers, becomes criminal. The most painful part in the Black community, in prison, you have many, 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 many children, who, especially our male counterpart, who are spending a lot of time in prison because of aggression, drug use, drug selling, sometimes mental health, all sorts of things of witness in relation to being physically abused or even seriously chastised. And so these things, they're quite serious in terms of the prognosis, really, of our generation. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Yeah. Really serious stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really serious stuff. I mean, as we have highlighted on the screen, we do acknowledge that this is a sensitive subject which may cause, evoke certain, emotions, cause distress to some
Absolutely.
people. So if you are affected in any way, please, you can contact us. And again, we've got some other numbers on the screen. You can contact NSPCC if you witness abuse, or if you need some support or guidance around that. Um, please do we are doing this together. We are not saying that parents are perfect, or we are not saying that I mean, we know that most parents do genuinely love their children, and they
Absolutely.
want the best for them.
Hmm.
And as we have said before, I mean, as we said before, sometimes the things we do, we are not consciously,
Hmm.
we are not aware that we are abusing the child,
Yeah.
and then because we have grown up to normalize these behaviors.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and that is the more reason why we are all learning. There are some things that we have been taught whilst we're growing up, or we have seen happen growing up, which have impacted on our parenting, and that is how why we are using those strategies to parent our own children. We are
Hmm.
saying that some of these things are toxic, some of these things are inappropriate,
Yeah.
and that
Absolutely.
we need to and learn some of these things.
Mm.
Instead, we need to learn. Parenting is very creativity.
Mm.
Parenting is really about creativity. You learn each day, so you don't just get stuck in one particular stage and then apply certain principles and then think that, okay, so this is static. No, you learn from the child. We learn from children themselves. We learn from our colleagues, we learn from professionals, we learn from various sources.
Absolutely.
Each day we are trying to be better parents.
Hmm. Yeah.
you know and if we refuse to learn, that is where the problem is. Some people would say that, like I said before, I have been using this approach since I was born. My mom was using it, and my grandmother was using it, and then it becomes a generational thing. But then people do make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Over the years, we review how we review our parenting strategies. Over the years, things are reviewed, and
Hmm.
then sometimes you will be then look at things and then see that, okay, what we have been doing actually constitutes abuse. Some
Mm.
years back in
Absolutely.
the UK, parents were, there was nothing in the law which was, kind of saying that parents shouldn't use canes on their children. But then
Absolutely.
over the years, things changed because
Hmm.
practice, you know, improved. We were
Hmm.
able to reflect and know that, okay, this method is not working. This
Yeah.
method has a negative impact on the children. Let
Yeah.
us something different. So
Yeah.
is parenting is creativity. We are always
Absolutely.
looking at how to do things better. At the
Hmm.
end of the day, you want to confident children. You want children who would grow up to be responsible adults.
Hmm.
And again, we should be having those dialogues. Some of us do not communicate with these children.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It's just a one-way affair. The child does
Hmm.
something wrong, you hit the child, you
Mm.
discipline the child,
Mm.
but
Yeah.
then you don't
Yeah.
have time to speak to these children.
Yeah.
Communication is a big worry for me, because we
Absolutely.
need to be able to build relationships with our children.
Absolutely.
How
Absolutely.
many times do we do things with them, particularly, us in the African community? We are
Hmm.
always very busy with
Yeah.
work, and even when we are at home, they are not
Yeah.
emotionally available.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
know,
Absolutely.
you've got a teenager, 14-year-old child,
Hmm.
who has seen a lot of things in school and
Hmm.
then among his or her friends.
Hmm.
But then the child comes when the child cannot even ask parent questions. The child is always scared, of the parent.
Hmm.
The, and the only communication that takes place at home is when the child is being instructed to do something.
Mm.
And so sometimes children would then find themselves acting up, or displaying some behaviors which parents will not find appropriate. And
Yeah.
then
Absolutely.
the child is, you will end up hitting the child, you end up
Mm.
using something to hit the child, and the child will sustain injuries. There are times that children have gone to school, and when they've been asked that, okay, so how did this mark come on your body, they would say,
Exactly.
it's my parent. And the parents are angry that they've gone
Yeah.
to betray
to,
them.
to speak about. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do we expect the children to say? To lie that it didn't happen? It doesn't make sense to me. So for me, just going back to parenting, either father or mother, whatever where you find yourself within. And I think obviously research actually 85% of perpetrator of abuse, physical abuse, are males really. So the males, whatever it is, you can still get help. If it's something that you feel that, oh, you have to physically discipline your children all the time because that's all get some help. Sometimes it's not only the child that's being physically abuse. Sometimes there's also elements of domestic abuse going on within the family unit. So nothing happens on its own. There's always a link with it. So if you're a man, or a woman, you feel that, you are the one who cannot hold yourself, you lose your temper all the time, or you are angry. I don't know what it is, but it's always good to get an anonymous help. That's the reason why we're doing what we're doing. The help with, all over the world that you can, the YouTube is there, whichever way, or talk to somebody you can rely on. Say, look, these things I get angry all the time. I'm not quite sure why. I don't want to be angry because I can take it on my wife, or I take it on my husband, I take it on my children. Because the more you can, the more you sort out your personal life, the better. As Elsie, my colleague, had just said, the better the calmness of your home environment, the better the outcome of your children. And you're probably much happier as an adult because your children will be much, much calmer. You'll be able to communicate with them better, and they'll be able to reason because they're human beings like you. They're probably more intelligent than you, us as adults. So they can reason. So, why did you do what you did? What happened? What do you think you're going to do differently next time? Okay. All right. You keep repeating the same. So does that mean maybe the child don't even understand what you even ask of them? So that's why routine and boundaries from onset, the day you have that child, is very, very important. Even from babies, there has to be a routine. So, for example, you have a baby. Oh, from 0 to 1 year, the baby is still sleeping on your bed. If you only have one bed, create a space for that child. Yeah, because that routine. If not, maybe that child doesn't want to sleep on the bed. You smack the child, you put the child on their bed. That is not going to work because you have not created that routine to ensure that child have every stage of their development what they need to be able to function. So you see, so it's up to us as adults. So if we lack those capacity, there are help out there. Even us that I even talking to you now, I'm sure there's a telephone number you can contact. So we're there to help, especially our Black and ethnic minority community, because we are social workers. We see them all the time, and physical abuse is the highest referral in relation to the ethnic and the Black community. And children are just necessarily put on the child protection plan, are risk register because they be physically abused. So we can say we can help each other and say, we want to minimize the level of children, especially Black children, who are made subject to child protection plan. We have probably have done something. We have make an inroads. So within how we're communicating with you, seek the help that is necessary so that we avoid our children, especially the Black community, losing their self-esteem, not building themselves on, and becoming a wonderful members of society. Yeah, because that's what we want for each of us, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we want. That's what we want. Yeah. And then whilst you were talking, I was also reflecting on, I mean, situations whereby there is domestic abuse at home,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and children have been caught in the crossfire, sort of,
Absolutely,
and the
absolutely,
child can be hit.
absolutely,
So
absolutely,
sometimes a child can be
absolutely.
hit,
Yeah,
by maybe the dad because the child is trying to protect the
the
mom
mother,
from being
absolutely.
hurt by the dad, and then the
Mhm,
child, I mean, the man will then hit the child or push the
mhm,
child on the floor, and the child can sustain injuries.
mhm.
All these things do have impact on the child. This child goes to school,
Absolutely.
this child can't even concentrate. How can a child go to school and be able to learn and concentrate, knowing that there's physical violence at home?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
You,
So
you
some
know,
so somebody's asking, can tribal marks be linked to cultural practice? Well, that you're linked to cultural practice be called an abuse. Okay. All right. So we shouldn't forget if you are made from to have a tribal mark in the United Kingdom, it will be classified as physical abuse. Don't forget the times of tribal marks, a time that the world was at a different stage, not 2020. So even in Africa now, certain parts, and you may be like Accra or Lagos, you've been a child is made to have a tribe, that will be classified as an abuse, because you've inflicted pain on that child. So, for example, if it's a primitive area of an Africa or the world where things are not known, they're not open, they're still having tribal, it's a part of their tradition. However, everything has to be put into perspective. As Essie has just said, maybe in the 1940s in England, people use physical chastisement to punish. Even in school, they were using, cane to cane that. But things have moved on. So in 2020, every year, every generation, there are different perspectives. So in relation to tribal mark in 20th century, in England will be classified as an abuse. Just like you can relate tribal mark to FGC, female genital mutilation. You can also relate tribal mark to, you know, breast ironing on teenagers. That is done. Some in some African countries that actually be brought to the UK. So in the UK, it's classified as an abuse. It's classed as a criminal offense. So, for example, you have a child in England and you decide to slide the child's face, as a tribal mark, that will be classified as an abuse. So we have to put things in perspective. But if it's a primitive place in the middle of nowhere, obviously, the rule, the law, and everything are very, very different. So as time evolves, years goes by, people are more enlightened. Our children have more access to information. They will not keep. They know more of their right now, because you can't even slap your child if they go and tell somebody else, or they will call the police. So, or some country they know what to do. So we have to put things in perspective in terms of physical abuse, basically. But any action, physical action that causes harm to somebody else, especially in relations to children and young people, is classified as an abuse.
Yeah. And talking about, the FGM, for instance, Ejiro,
Yeah,
sometimes parents, will take the child to some part of Africa, maybe to the home
exactly.
country,
Yeah.
and for the FGM to take
Hmm.
place, and then they would come back. We just want viewers to know that even if it is not done in this country, when you come back, you will still be in trouble.
Absolutely. You still be charged for the offense. So you should be arrested and you be investigated. That's still classified as abuse. So it's still the same thing, isn't it? Tribal marks is the same. They see it as tribal marks anyway. Female genital mutilation. I mean, look at the words alone. Female genital. You're mutilating a
Yeah,
child's,
yeah, and it
body
has
part.
really yeah, it has really
Mm,
serious health impact also.
impact.
In
Exactly.
some situations, children, girls have died out of that, you know,
Absolutely.
because they had been bleeding so
So
much.
much consistently for years and years.
Yeah. We've got
Um,
we've got a question over here. We say that communication, well, not a question, it says communication between parents and children is key to the upbringing of children.
Absolutely, spot on. Yeah.
It's a partnership kind of,
Hmm. Hmm.
obviously as a parent, you are the person in authority.
Hmm.
But then, being a parent, you need to put a lot of, various in the heart, skills in your heart, sort of.
Uh-huh.
One day you were a teacher, you can be a teacher,
Uh-huh.
you were a comedian, you were everything really. So you
Exactly.
should be able to
Exactly.
discipline the child appropriately when you have to exercise
Hmm.
that authority. At the
Hmm.
same time, you should be that parent who the child can have a laugh with and have conversations with, you know, not just that parent who is always there to discipline the child.
Hmm.
So
Absolutely.
you should, yeah. So the parent. That's why I keep saying that parenting is not easy.
No.
Easy role.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, parenting is not an easy task.
Yeah.
We learn each time. We learn to be better parents each time.
Hmm. Yes, and it's a skill that we all have to learn. As we said, now those skills that we were brought up with, they're not necessarily the skill that's going to be effective in the next generation, because the generations do evolve. You see, so what we knew before, we all have to learn every day, don't we? We all have to learn the skill. I say, okay, this is how I was brought up. However, but now this is what I've been exposed to. So be exposure, the good and the bad, the effect. Really, we that we were smacked. There were some side effects. Everyone can say, I originally came from Nigeria myself. When you first come to this country, you don't look at people in the face because you feel timid. You have to learn to be face to face and develop your confidence. So it's never easy. So we all have to learn that, okay, if you can learn this skill quick, you're actually bringing up children who are balanced, who have a balanced life. They have good sense of self. They are, whatever they find to do on earth, they will be able to achieve it better than struggling with low self-esteem as adults, with anxiety, with mental health difficulties, with all sorts of things, or even into drugs and alcohol, or it's all sorts of, illness, emotional illnesses that can be avoided, basically. That can be avoided.
Yeah, so we've got a question here that lots of our cultural practices regarding parenting don't promote welfare of children.
Mm.
We need to accept that. What are your
Absolutely.
views?
Absolutely. So lots of our cultural practices regarding parenting don't promote welfare of children. And absolutely. And we hope that that's obviously, as time goes on in the developing world, we have to start thinking and accepting that children need to be heard, that they are human beings, and we have a role to bring them up. As I mean, imagine, for me, let every parent start thinking, how do I want this little child? Look at this child in the next 20 years. Imagine your child the next 20 years. What are they going to look like? How are they going to behave? Where are they going to be? What are they going to do? You see, so parenting is a skill, really. Is a skill. What I find, you don't have to be a professor to bring up a president. You don't have to be a doctor to bring up a prime minister. You just have to know that if you're willing to learn as a parent, you will bring up the next generation of doctors, the next generations of teachers, the next generation of prime ministers. You just have to say, I am going to learn. This is what I'm going to do to ensure that my child has a better outcome. Is given opportunity to achieve, because children are like flowers. The Bible actually tells us that, so we're human. When you're a teenager, you're like flower. So you have to water that flower. You see, you water it. If you put the wrong water in, which is a wrong attitude, wrong way of parenting the child, you're going to, that child, obviously, when they say die maybe means they're not going to be able to meet a better outcome. Not have they achieve what God has actually created them on earth to achieve. They might, might find their way back later.
Yeah,
However, it's likely to be a struggle. You see, so but the earlier we learn as community, Black community, and find peace within ourselves. And I think what's happened, because a lot of us, are struggling to make ends meet, to go to work and do this. We have not really be reflective that we actually are bringing the next generation of the Black community up, to achieve and fulfill their purpose. You see, so all that really needs to start thinking, okay, right, as a Black community, what we have to find is ourselves, so that we can bring the next ones up, and the ones who are going to, be able to be achievers of tomorrow,
yeah,
and to build a country, to build African country, and even the United Kingdom here, and that's what we want, and we're in it together.
yeah.
Uh,
We are in this
so
together.
whatever help we can offer as a community, we will try as much as possible to be available for that to happen. So this is the purpose. I'm hope, in relation to this mission.
Yeah.
Really.
We are in it together.
Yeah,
Nobody's perfect.
exactly.
We acknowledge how
Yeah,
parents are working really hard.
yeah,
Just as we want things to get even better, and that is
absolutely,
why we are all learning.
absolutely.
All too soon, we've come to the end of our session this evening, and as we normally do, we would like say our final word. So, Ejiro, should we come to you? What is your final word for this evening,
Okay,
session?
I would just say, people will say that, oh, there's no book in terms of parenting, but we can learn. You see, that's the difference. So if you're struggling, I think it has to do with adults here. If you're strong, because children did not ask to come to this world. We chose to have them actually.
Mm, mm.
Which but
Yeah, that's
one
true.
one thing we must always know, we have it, they didn't ask to come in. We want to take that responsibility. So it's a job. Just like you go to work as a doctor, whatever, or you cleaner, however profession you find yourself. So parenting is a job. So know that is a job. And in that job, you have to continue to upgrade your skill in order to be an effective and a better parent. So if you're struggling emotionally, maybe you're suffering from mental health, there's poverty involved, there's a broken home, that you're going through divorce, and there's anger going on, everything, and instability going on in your family home, please seek the help. There's, if you're a man, there's work organized called Respect that you can talk to. There's a telephone number. Just go on the internet. If you can't find, if I've showed the number here, just go on the and access that support, because I'm sure it's not intentional. In most cases, most abuse are not intentional, but because of the needs of the adult are not really met. So they put those needs on that child, you see. So I'm hoping today, from today's, talk and panelist, that you look at that number and you call the number if you've been a victim and you need help or you need advice, whichever way it might be. Even if you're a community, a church community, an organization that need advice and support, we're here to support you. So there's a number that you can contact, or you can go on the internet. That you can, there's your local children's services or wherever you are in the world. As Essie has said, if you don't have local children's service, you can always call the police, in an emergency. But don't keep things to yourself. It's not going to get better. It's not going to, until we speak up. So until we begin to speak up, then things don't get better, but they will get better. But we can no longer hide it under the disguise of chastisement.
Mm, mm,
Under
mm.
disguise, because I am angry, or I'm not happy about the world, and I use my anger onto onto the little human beings that God has given you responsibility to actually to care for. So that's me I leave that with
Wow. Yeah,
you.
thank you so much, Ejiro. Yes, we have, learned a lot. There's still a lot to do. Obviously, in the weeks and months ahead, we would continue to talk about physical abuse, looking at the other aspects of physical abuse.
Yeah.
The other aspects of child abuse.
Mhm.
But then this is really important. Like I said, we are all learning. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has all the answers, and
Mm,
each day we learn to be we learn to be better parents. Let us
mm.
seek support. Let us seek advice from people like professionals and people who know better, and let us learn those skills, and each day let us aim to be better um, parents. So on this note, we want to say thank you so much for watching, and we will be back again. Bye.
Bye.